Got cheated on again. I am a 22-year-old male who is completely infatuated with a girl named A. Prepare yourself for a lengthy tale. I first encountered her in 2017 while attending my weekend Indian Institute of Technology classes. We engaged in conversation for quite some time, but eventually grew apart as I became interested in someone else, a fact I was aware of. Recently, we resumed our communication in November of 2024. I had ended a relationship with my previous girlfriend approximately 5 years ago and was deeply in love with her until about a year ago. And I began conversing again, and she had also recently emerged from a toxic and abusive relationship 8 months prior. Our interactions quickly escalated from talking to meeting, then to hugging, and eventually kissing. Over the next 2 months, we disclosed many of our deepest secrets. This is when matters began to complicate. My so-called best friend, K, who I have known for 11 years, is also interested in A. I made it abundantly clear to both him and me that her feelings were directed toward me. To satisfy my friend's concerns and uphold the bro code, I even inquired whether he would be okay with me pursuing A, to which he responded, "You are like a brother to me, I have no objections. Go ahead with her, I will be genuinely happy." Encouraged by this, I followed my heart. For about a month, things seemed to be going well, and I genuinely believed I could build a future with A. K continued to flirt with her and shower her with gifts, which I confided in me about. However, she also requested that I not inform K, as it would hurt his feelings. This is when things started to unravel. I complied with her request, but was still open with K about my feelings for A, to which he gave the same response. A reassured me there was no cause for concern, even as I repeatedly expressed my worries about K's intentions. What followed was a series of lies from both K and A, two individuals I believed cared the most for me. The first deception occurred on January 19th, when A unexpectedly messaged me saying she needed to end our relationship because she had not moved on from her ex. The second falsehood was when K, knowing and I had stopped seeing each other, messaged me the following day, January 20th, to check on me. I explained the situation regarding A, and he advised me to move on, claiming she was not worth it. This lie will become important later. The third deceit unfolded on January 20th when I spotted K in a car, returning from somewhere. Though I only caught a glimpse, my instincts were clear. I saw her sitting in the passenger seat just a day after she ended things with me. When I confronted them about it, they both denied my claim, insisting I was mistaken. The fourth lie occurred when K and A began texting me frequently within short intervals, often just 1 or 2 minutes apart. This usually happened shortly before we would meet. My intuition suggested they were secretly meeting before contacting me. When I asked them about it, naturally, they lied. The fifth lie took place on January 31st. I had not slept well and had just played a tough yet enjoyable football game. We had plans to meet at A's house to drink, along with K and 5 other friends. This is when the story takes a significant turn. Turning point, A continued to care for me deeply. I initially thought she hadn't fully moved on from her previous relationship, and I kept pursuing her, despite her requests not to. That was my mistake. I should have heeded her advice. However, driven by my desire for her, I persisted. On the night of January 31st, heading into February 1st, we were all drinking and having a great time. A and K were outside on the balcony, and when I wanted to step out for a smoke, K created an excuse for me to leave. I understood what was happening. After about 10 minutes, A returned, crying profusely and refusing to explain why, prompting me to confront K on the balcony. I pressured him until he eventually revealed the truth. His first words were that A never liked me. At that moment, I felt numb. I was consumed with confusion and sorrow, wondering why she would end things, believing it might be related to her ex. K then disclosed that I had used to beckon him from the balcony, flirt with him, and ask for favors. Just as I appeared on the balcony, I dropped the beer bottle, slammed the door, and told her to leave. She ignored me. I gathered my belongings and left, telling her best friend to go away as well, questioning if she knew what was happening. She confirmed she did. I opened the door and ran off, but one of my other friends stopped and calmed me down as I expressed my feelings of betrayal from 2 of the closest people in my life. I punched the wall multiple times, injuring my knuckles and bones in the process. From here, K approached me, wanting to talk. I followed him, insisting she needed to be present since it involved her, despite my requests for her to leave. Kay explained how everything had unfolded. This is when the second lie made more sense. Kay explained that the situation began on January 19th after he, A, and I had returned from drinking. Kay first dropped me home and then took a back. That's when I broke down in front of him, claiming I was messing with her emotions. But how was I interfering with her feelings? Let me clarify. At the beginning of my relationship with A, she often expressed that I was not expressive or emotional enough. I undergo significant family issues, which only 2 of my closest friends are aware of, but I ended up confiding in A as well. On the night of January 19th, after I had a disagreement with her friends, she noticed my troubled state due to my family problems, which made her feel helpless. Kay then revealed to me that it did not leave me for her ex, but rather because I was too emotionally damaged. She sought someone to care for her rather than needing to care for someone else. Those words devastated me. My greatest vulnerability had become the reason the person I desired left me. That was the last thing I heard before I punched the stairs multiple times in frustration. I returned home and went straight to bed, heavily intoxicated. The following day, I met at her place to seek answers. She echoed Kay's sentiments, acknowledging her fault in leaving me and admitting she should have been stronger. I cried heavily, and so did she. I should have walked away then, but I insisted that she liked me, and my resolve weakened. On February 2nd, my birthday, the day I turned 22, also became the day I experienced the most pain. I spoke to Kay, who arrived with one of my childhood friends to celebrate with cake. He expressed his regrets about what had transpired. He lacked the courage to admit he was seeing the girl I loved, even after I had told him countless times of my feelings for her. I chose to forgive him, telling both him and that they could pursue whatever made them happy. I should not be a burden. This became my second mistake. A few hours later, my friends and I decided to drink at Kay's place for my birthday. One of my friends then shared a story about a guy who had dated his girlfriend and caused her pain 5 years ago. Kay, inebriated, suggested we confront him. We managed to calm him down, and I went downstairs to meet and our other friends who wished to celebrate my birthday with cake. I went down, intoxicated, and cut my cake. Kay later approached me, inquiring about the guy. I dismissed him, but he continued to provoke me. As I pulled at his shirt, I noticed several hickeys on his neck. I felt a wave of shock wash over me. I confronted her directly, asking if she was responsible for those marks, to which she vehemently denied it, claiming it was someone else. I believed her after repeated questioning. Kay then grew increasingly agitated. I confronted him, demanding he cease his behavior. When he instructed me not to touch him, I challenged him, asking if he would hit me. He replied affirmatively, insisting I lacked the guts to retaliate, implying I held no worth or respect in touching him. Hearing this pushed me to walk away as my friends tried to calm me down. I didn't want to ruin my birthday, so I told Kay it was okay. This proved to be my third mistake. The night continued, and Kay revealed that I was indeed the one who had marked him. After that revelation, the rest of the evening blurred for me. The next day, I reflected on everything. My body was in turmoil, and my heart felt heavy with betrayal. I didn't communicate with Kay for an entire day. A day later, I met her to confront her about her lies. She claimed the incident with Kay happened before January 31st and occurred only once, which was her 6th lie. We talked it through, and she expressed that she still liked me but needed time to sort her feelings. I then visited Kay to share my hurt over his actions, explaining that what stung the most was his challenge to my character and self-respect. He expressed his apologies, and I forgave him. This was my 4th mistake. Let me provide some context about Kay. He has been my friend since 5th grade and has witnessed my growth over the years. At some point, he developed the unsettling habit of reading my messages with other girls when I would fall asleep. Upon confronting him about it, he admitted, "I have a terrible habit of reading other people's chats." I told him not to do it, and initially I overlooked the issue. Eventually, Kay began to make inappropriate comments to my ex in my presence, fully aware that I was not over her. I asked him to stop, but the behavior persisted. On one occasion, while drunk, Kay struck me, justifying it by saying he was irritated and upset. I grew to understand that he is a toxic individual and a narcissist who only cared about himself. He has admitted to her that he is a narcissist and would only end up hurting her. A had endured a toxic relationship before and shared with me her attraction to Kay because he frequently fought with her, made her cry, and abused her. Despite this, she still forgave him and felt drawn to him. I let that incident pass as well. Shortly after, I began to harm myself emotionally. A continually expressed her desire to be with me, yet she confided in Kay about liking him, feeling that stepping away would make her appear indecisive. Thus, I told them both to pursue what they wanted. It was their lives. I explicitly told her that even if she chose Kay, all I wished for her was happiness. She insisted she wanted to be with me but needed time to figure things out, mentioning that with Kay she experienced fleeting moments of happiness, whereas she felt stability with me. This softened my heart, and I kept pursuing her, despite her non-committal stance. She assured me she cared for me and attempted to make me feel comfortable. As time passed, and I spent an increasing amount of time together. All her friends disapproved of Kay and wished for her to avoid him, perhaps making her want him more. I'm not entirely sure. A told me she was genuinely happy and found peace with me. This pattern continued. On February 20th, I visited A's home, where we drank beer and lost ourselves in a movie. The next day, she asserted that she had a wonderful time and encouraged me to come over again on the night of February 21st. I am writing this on February 22nd morning. Kay had mentioned he would head home early on the 21st due to work commitments. My instinct began to stir. I asked if she had informed him she would be alone, and she replied affirmatively. I felt a sense of unease creeping in, and although it urged me not to overthink, I instinctively trusted her based on our interaction from the previous night. Today, she told me I couldn't come over as she needed to visit her aunt's place. My gut instinct flared up once more. I returned to my apartment but went to A's block. I saw her at home and asked what she was doing. She claimed she had just arrived and was going to meet Kay because he needed to discuss something with her. I understood the implications. Kay called her downstairs, and I told I would wait for her, offering to join if Kay was merely there to talk. She insisted waiting wasn't fruitful, as she had no idea how long they would take. I reluctantly left. Then she informed me that Kay was coming over with a cake and some beer to smoke together. I could no longer control myself. I instructed me not to message her while Kay was there, so he wouldn't notice. I positioned myself near the door and overheard them drinking and laughing. Eventually, I heard them decide to use drugs. I said, "Please, Kay, let's go and smoke up. I'll do anything you want." Kay responded with, "Anything? Are you sure?" I believe the rest is obvious. They smoked, returned to the hall, and began making out. I was shattered. I could hear every detail through the door. The kisses, the playful slaps, the intimate exchanges, and even asking Kay if he came in her mouth, to which Kay responded affirmatively before exclaimed, "You!" Then they laughed. After smoking a cigarette, they conversed about me, though their words were unclear, and soon returned to their previous activities. I came to A's block at 1 a.m. and could no longer endure it. I left at 5:30 a.m. Every moment was consumed by the torment of their actions. I felt numbness spread throughout my being, overwhelmed by a pain so profound that I struggled to register it. I repeatedly cursed myself for having trusted her once more. I was spiraling into madness, descending into despair. I ventured outside, smoked a cigarette, and returned home. Overwhelmed by emotions, I turned to Reddit to share my convoluted experience, a story meant for strangers who may or may not read it. I needed to express myself. I am losing my sanity. I have developed insomnia. I have no appetite, and I feel as though my vitality has faded. The thought of how these two have betrayed me, repeatedly, weighs heavily on me. I genuinely do not know what to do. She just sent me a message saying she woke up to use the bathroom, but chronologically, it was sent after Kay had left her place. When she told me Kay was coming over, she advised me not to worry or overthink, urging me to simply get some sleep. I am relieved I did not sleep. Even if it meant eavesdropping on them, I knew I needed to do so to gain clarity. I am utterly at a loss. I feel hopeless. My luck in matters of love seems abysmal, and I suspect it may be karma for having hurt others in the past. I am not penning all of this in hopes of garnering sympathy. I am merely trying to vent to strangers who I do not even know. Good night, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Story 2. What do you call a man who has never been yours, but with whom you had a connection, and who's always in the back of your mind no matter how many relationships you go into? Him M22 and me F23. Hi, I am a 23-year-old female and the guy I will discuss is a 22-year-old male and what we had lasted for 10 years. Back when I was in 8th grade, I had a crush on this guy. Initially, it was nothing more than an innocent, unreciprocated crush. However, when we entered 9th grade, he began to perform these sweet gestures. He frequently brushed my hair while sitting behind me. He never allowed anyone else to touch or use his comb, no one but him. He often brought pillows to our advisory room so he could have something soft to rest on his shoulders while I lay there listening to lectures. He consistently complimented my hair, and I often caught him staring. However, at that time, I did not dwell much on it, even though a lot of our classmates were saying things about it. I didn't think too deeply because he had a girlfriend back then. Don't worry, I never attempted to flirt with him during this time, as I did not want to break them up. The girl was also my former friend, and I had no desire to hurt her feelings. Then 10th grade arrived, and he completely ignored me. Whenever I saw him in the hallways, he would change direction or simply cover his face with a towel. Before the first quarter ended, my mental health started to decline due to various issues, which led to my transferring schools because I couldn't manage my environment at that time. That entire year passed without me speaking to him again. Then, on an unrelated day, I forget exactly when, while I was in our room. I don't know if we were waiting for a teacher or it was break time. I really can't remember. I decided to message him and ask how everyone, including him, was doing. I asked about everyone because I had cut off contact with everyone at that school, including my closest friends. We talked briefly, and that was where it ended. I graduated from 10th grade, completed my first semester in senior high, and our conversations were rare at that point. When the second semester arrived, I faced family problems. I was failing school, losing my scholarship, and I had a negative experience with my math tutor, but I never mentioned anything to anyone because he was the only math tutor who had genuinely helped me. My breaking point came when the guy I was speaking to at the time left me. I felt completely lost. I stopped going to school and instead spent my time hanging out in malls, and at the apartment my parents had rented for me to study comfortably at that university, as the bus ride from my home to the school took 1.5 to 2 hours. Ultimately, I dropped out of school, and fortunately, my parents understood and accepted my decision. That was when I started talking to him again. When we first discussed what had happened, he immediately invited me outside, not a date. We talked, and I was so grateful for him because he didn't judge me. He just listened to what I had to say. We shared some jokes and laughter. We ended our walk in a sunflower field where the sunflowers were all drooping because it was sunset. He even took some pictures of the sunflowers. After that meeting, we continued to talk. 2 months later, the pandemic and subsequent lockdown occurred. This is when we became really close. We had late-night calls every night, even during the day. We would sleep on the phone. If he needed to buy something, he would tell me, and I would reciprocate. The pandemic was also a time when I was a little wild. I would chat with 5 to 10 guys in a week, then ghost them and completely move on the following week. He was always aware of every guy I talked to because I would tell him about our conversations. On the other hand, he was loyal to his girlfriend. Yes, he had a girlfriend again, but she was different from the previous one. I could share their story as it is quite amusing, but I respect their privacy and won't. However, there was a time when I accidentally fell for one of my brief flings, and that guy friend zoned me and I was like, "What do you mean, friends? We've been talking for 3 months. You literally sing love songs for me and you're telling me we're just friends?" So when that happened, I completely fell apart. I called wait. I'm so tired of not having a name for him. I'm literally confused with my own story now. I'll just call him Junior, as I always teased him with that name. So that night, I messaged Junior and told him that I wasn't fine, blah, blah, blah. He called me instantly, and we spoke on the phone until sunrise. I ended up falling asleep on the call, and it only ended because my Wi-Fi suddenly had issues. Afterward, they began allowing us to go out again under strict COVID guidelines. He sometimes asked me to go out, not a date, and he was still very sweet, though not overly so. He was the kind who seemed rather cold but genuinely cared. I forgot to mention that throughout high school and afterward, he was quiet, cold, and had only a few friends. When I say we talk in this story, it's usually me chatting away while he listens and gives short responses. He talks a lot as well when he shares stories or offers advice, but I'm the primary talker in our friendship. During COVID, even when we were allowed to go out, I started playing a game called Mobile Legends. I was quite bad at it, but I enjoyed it immensely. Despite my lack of skill, he would still play with me, creating more than 5 accounts to join me in ranked battles. He was good and consistently became the most valuable player, advancing his accounts rapidly, which made it difficult for me to catch up. Imagine us always playing, with him earning the MVP medal while I would receive the lowest rank. If you play Mobile Legends, you know that if your rankings are too far apart, you can no longer play together. Essentially, I ranked up because we frequently won, but he advanced 3 times faster due to always being MVP and gaining more stars. So to continue playing together, he kept creating new accounts. That became our routine. I'm unsure if what we were doing was inappropriate since he had a girlfriend, and I also had a boyfriend during the pandemic. I never considered it wrong because we didn't flirt or engage in anything sexual. Then my 18th birthday arrived, which was a small celebration due to COVID policies. I invited my closest friends and him. My boyfriend didn't come because he was in another country. After the celebration, we got drunk. Yes, drinking at 18 is legal here. That's why we went all out with just a few of us, around 10 people, and it was an unforgettable birthday. This was when we kind of crossed a line. At midnight, his parents suddenly arrived to pick him up because he didn't bring his motorcycle, knowing he would be drinking and wanted to avoid an accident. So, while we were on the rooftop drinking, I accompanied him downstairs when his parents arrived. As we went outside, we hugged because I didn't want him to go home yet. I kept saying, "Please," as if he were my boyfriend, and I would be devastated if he left. It was cringeworthy, honestly. Looking back, if I could confront my 2020 self, I would definitely scold her. But it's already happened, so I can't undo the past. He hugged me back and kept reassuring me that there would be a next time when he would return. This lasted for about 15 minutes, which was so embarrassing for both his parents and mine. My mom even thought we were dating, but I denied it immediately. Afterward, I assumed it would feel awkward, but everything remained the same. We continued to be close, frequently calling each other and meeting up. Also, I should mention that he often initiated many of our calls and meetings. I recall a few times when he would call or ask to meet. He might say, "Ma'am, put on your earphones," and I would respond, "Why?" To which he would say, "Call." Otherwise, he would simply say, "Call," or "I'll call." On the other hand, if I wanted to call, I would just do it immediately, and he would always answer on the first ring. When it came to meetings, he would say, "Boss, I'm at your house. Let's go out." That sums up my 2020-2021. I even resumed my studies. However, 2022 arrived, and my boyfriend and I broke up. I was devastated by the reason for our breakup, which led me to attempt suicide because my psychiatrist did not properly diagnose me and prescribed me medication that was inadequate for my needs. She did not conduct the necessary testing, and we were unaware of how severe my condition was. I also did not realize that I was capable of such actions at that time. I often think about why I didn't just call Junior that night. Perhaps he could have helped. Unfortunately, I was nearly sent to a rehabilitation facility and was left untreated following my suicide attempt. I experienced crying, screaming, and difficulty breathing, feeling lightheaded and isolated in a dark room where I could hear a distraught woman muttering random things from the next room. When someone checked on me, they merely told me to be quiet. I sat there with blood slightly dripping from the bandage I had futilely placed on my wrist, as it was quite deep and had hit a vein. I also overdosed on 84 pieces of paracetamol. That night was chaotic at the rehab center. Then, on the second day, I suffered a sort of heart attack, and the staff was unable to treat it. They didn't know what to do, so I was taken to a larger hospital. There, my overdose was treated, my wrist was stitched, and I was rehydrated after all the crying and screaming. I remained in the intensive care unit for a week because they had to monitor my heart, as I frequently had difficulty breathing. Afterward, I spent another week in a regular hospital room because I still didn't feel strong enough to go home. Following this incident, I did not return home after leaving the hospital. Instead, I stayed at my cousin's house for 3 months and did not speak to my parents at all during the first month because of what had transpired in rehab. After that, I hardly spoke to Junior. He was aware of the incident since I informed him. However, our friendship grew apart, and we did not communicate as much anymore. It was rare for me to talk to him more than 4 times a month, and then those 4 conversations turned into months without any interaction. I still contacted him sporadically between September 2022 and 2024, but it was not the same anymore. Additionally, he began attending face-to-face classes in another city that is 5 hours away from me. Last December, I confronted him about how much I missed our bond and expressed that he had changed. He simply stated that he had moved on with his life. After our conversation, I decided to officially say goodbye, and my final message to him was, "I love you." I did not allow him to reply. Immediately after sending it, I blocked him, deleted him from my contacts, and restricted him on social media as well. I completely cut him off. It has been 2 months since then, and I have received no news from him. The last time I saw him was during our final hangout. We went on a road trip to the mountains, stayed for a while, and admired the view. Before heading home, we visited a cafe. I ordered a matcha drink, and he went for iced coffee. We enjoyed loaded fries and pizza, and then he drove me home. He even laughed at me because it was quite late, and my parents had not called yet, even though I was already 22. You know how Asian households are. He teased me that my parents did not care about me anymore. That was the last time I saw him in person. I insisted on meeting up afterward, but our schedules never aligned, and he was often busy with college, even though he rarely attended his classes, yet still managed to achieve a high GPA, which I literally despised him for. At least I know he is doing well. He has gained weight compared to before. He was tall and used to be built like a twig, but do not get me wrong, he has an incredible face and could date anyone he wanted. During our last meeting, he asked me to prepare a large batch of kimchi because he enjoys my kimchi very much and has been requesting it for a long time. He even offered to pay for all the ingredients if I would just make it for him. Unfortunately, I never had the chance to make the kimchi he wanted since we have not met again since that day. Last week, I saw some kimchi at the grocery store and thought of him again. So, what exactly do I refer to that man in my life? Since 8th grade, he has always occupied a space in my mind. With every crush, fling, situationship, and relationship I've had since I turned 13, he has lingered in the background. Others who observe us and know our story often ship us, but we have never had anything official. We never confessed our feelings to each other. And when I ask him if we are friends, he always says no. I have asked him several times each year, even though I consider him one of my friends, which is why I continue to raise the topic of friendship. If we are not friends and we are not in a romantic relationship, and I know he doesn't consider me his sister since he is quite selective, then what do I call that man in my life? A fun fact: in all 9 years of our peculiar relationship, we have never had a single picture taken of us together. I am not exaggerating, we genuinely do not have one. I have some photos of him but not of us together. Those are the only records of what we had: his stolen pictures, our message conversations, and the sun necklace he gifted me before my suicide attempt, which I just remembered that my sister lost. I hate to admit it, but I do not want to be delusional, and I do not want to make assumptions. Yet every time I share a small story about us with new people, they often say he was in love with me in some way. What I have mentioned above does not even encompass a quarter of the things he has done for me and what we shared together. I feel delusional for believing that there was a spark between us. I worry that the people insisting there was are affecting my perception, and in reality there was nothing there. P.S. I apologize if this causes strain on your brain due to grammatical errors. English is not my first language, but I did my best. All love. Story 3. Dreading a business trip with my narcissistic coworker, 35M. How do I, 43F, avoid him without drama? Dear Redditors, first and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude in advance for taking the time to read my lengthy post. This is my very first entry on Reddit, and I believe that sharing my experience will contribute to my healing, even if only slightly. I would sincerely appreciate any guidance. I understand that some of you may feel I am overreacting, so I am also open to suggestions that I should get over it. I am seeking assistance regarding my current work situation. I am in considerable distress and can hardly convey how much it has impacted me. I feel shattered. Due to the circumstances I will outline below, I have recently begun grinding my teeth, which is something I have never done in my life. I have struggled with depression for as long as I can remember, but the last few years have been particularly agonizing. I, a 43-year-old female, have been employed with a male colleague who is 35 for 8 years. We share the same office and perform essentially identical roles. We began working at this company at the same time. In the beginning, we got along famously, sharing much laughter and generally enjoying our work environment. However, from the outset, I had an unsettling feeling that something was amiss with him, although I could not quite identify what it was. After approximately 5 years of collaboration, I came to the realization that he is a covert narcissist. How did I make this discovery? I observed that he mirrored my 69-year-old mother in many ways. In essence, I simultaneously recognized my mother and my coworker as narcissists, all thanks to the information available online. For those familiar with narcissistic personality disorder, you will likely understand this. Initially, there was significant love bombing. He would give me gifts, including for my nephew, and offer assistance for everything. For instance, I would casually mention my favorite cookies, and the next day he would bring them for me. Even his sister and mother sent me food. Other colleagues noted the strong rapport we shared. Some even speculated that we were friends with benefits. Gradually, however, his facade began to crumble. Numerous instances filled me with revulsion toward him. He began to constantly oppose my views. When I purchased my apartment and obtained a mortgage, he remarked, "I would never take on a mortgage." When I installed air conditioning, he declared, "I would never have air conditioning." When I expressed a desire for a job I was passionate about, he scoffed, "It's immature to seek out a meaningful job. Only a small fraction of people enjoy their work." Despite being aware of my strained relationship with my mother, he would say things like, "I cannot comprehend how anyone can have a poor relationship with their parents." Day by day, he grew more critical and judgmental. His worldview was starkly black and white. People were either good or bad, with no shades of gray. Regrettably, he rarely had anything positive to say about anyone, with the exception of his mother. In addition, I began to realize that he held profoundly negative views regarding women, yet simultaneously craved their attention above all else. One of the most troubling statements he made was, "If a woman dresses provocatively, she deserves to be raped." That was the moment I truly started to see him for who he is. He would also belittle his girlfriend, stating, "She trained in ice skating, and that's her only advantage over me." Then there was the time he unexpectedly took a selfie and sent it to me. I had never shared any photos of myself with him. I am quite certain his girlfriend would not be pleased about that. Additionally, he has significant anger issues. He would become triggered by minor annoyances, such as seeing a woman driving an expensive vehicle, exclaiming, "I know you didn't buy that car with your own money." Or he would lose his temper if his Excel spreadsheet froze for 5 seconds. Around 3 years ago, I started minimizing my communication with him as much as possible. Thankfully, following the COVID pandemic, we were given the option to work from home, and as a result, I now only see him once or twice a week. I found it essential to distance myself because I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, fearful of saying something that would upset him. Over time, I consciously worked to disengage. I began ignoring his terrible comments, ceased sharing personal details, and ultimately cut off all unnecessary interactions. We used to spend time together at work, enjoying long coffee breaks, going for walks, and having lunch together, but I also put an end to that. Presently, I sense that he despises me due to this change. The problem that is tearing me apart is this. We have a business trip next month. We typically go on 1 or 2 each year, and I am already trembling at the thought of it. In the past, when we got along, we would socialize after meetings and explore the cities we visited. Now, however, the idea of spending time with him during this trip makes me physically ill. I can hardly breathe when I am near him. He makes my skin crawl. Nevertheless, I still wish to be polite. I do not want him to loathe me. How can I kindly avoid socializing with him on this business trip, considering we used to enjoy each other's company before? I already feel guilty for the way I have distanced myself, but avoiding him during the trip seems like yet another level of torment. I have been searching for a new job for over 6 months. I have had a few interviews, but unfortunately, I have not had any success thus far. I dread going to work. My stomach churns every time I think about it. Additionally, I made the error of confiding in another colleague, often referred to as a flying monkey, about his behavior, and it completely backfired on me. I feel like I am losing my sanity. I feel irreparably damaged. I have educated myself extensively on narcissism, including information from this platform, but most cases focus on narcissistic partners or parents, with very few addressing coworkers or friends. I earnestly hope someone out there has experienced something akin to this and can provide guidance or encouragement, preventing me from spiraling into this dark void. I sincerely appreciate everyone who takes the time to read this post and offer their thoughts. Your support means more to me than you can imagine. Summary: I, a 43-year-old female, have worked with a 35-year-old male coworker for 8 years. We were initially on good terms, but I gradually recognized him as a covert narcissist with negative views towards women and serious anger issues. I have distanced myself, but there is an upcoming business trip that fills me with dread regarding spending time with him. How can I avoid him without inciting drama, given our past interactions? Any advice would be immensely helpful.